Hello and welcome to another special episode of Superhero Club, your go-to show for all things comic book inspired by Prime Video original series. I'm your host Stephanie Williams. Before we get too far in, if you want more superhero content like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Today we are highlighting the character Kimiko Miyashiro, the most formidable and arguably the coolest member of the boys. First, we'll dive into some of her comic history, then we'll get into how it compares to the Kimiko introduced in the TV series. One of the biggest differences between the character Kimiko in the boys comic series compared to the show is that she is only known as the female, plus some of the nicknames given to her by Frenchie like Petite Lazarus. For the sake of this deep dive, I'll be referring to her as Kimiko, the name given to her on the TV series. Kimiko made her debut in issue number 2 and wasted no time getting to work eviscerating a man who was foolish enough to answer the door. In the very next issue of the series, it's implied there is more to Kimiko than having some kind of bloodlust, and instead, it may be triggered by someone merely touching her due to past trauma that the series gets into later. In issue 3, when this insight is given for Kimiko's character, it happens when Frenchie stops Huey from touching her shoulder as he tries to get her attention. She also loves candy and has a soft spot for animals, as she is the one to release the hamster that emerged from Blarney Cox's butt. She even took care of it in Huey's absence. There is no doubt that Kimiko is an efficient killing machine and therefore a worthy asset to the likes of Billy Butcher. Whenever she is in action on the pages in the comics, Kimiko leaves no face unremoved by her hands. But like most characters in the boys, she has a tragic origin story. In issue 38 of the boys comic series, Kimiko's life before becoming a team member is explored. When she was a very young child, she was exposed to Compound V after falling into a waste bucket. Her mother worked at the Japanese equivalent of Vought America, but was unable to afford childcare, so she had to bring her daughter to work. One of those days, Kimiko fell into a Compound V waste bucket. As a result, she gained superhuman strength and, along with it, the urge to kill. She started out by killing a scientist who discovered her in the waste bucket. Shortly after, she was put into a cage and studied like a lab rat. Her blood was frequently extracted to study Compound V's effects on humans. Kimiko tried to escape countless times but was unsuccessful until she was rescued by Billy Butcher and the rest of the boys. All of which sounds like fair justification for how Kimiko interacts with the world. Kimiko only let her guard down around Frenchie, who was the only member of the boys' team to treat her like a human instead of just a killing machine. Because Kimiko doesn't speak, Frenchie is the only one to take the time to communicate with her via sign language and other forms of communication. Kimiko doesn't say anything until issue 66 of the series. Alright, so we're going to put a pin in Kimiko's comic book deep dive and move on to the version of the character we've gotten to know in the boys TV series. There are a good amount of similarities between the Kimiko of the comic series and the one we get to know in the TV series, but first, let's get into some of the background info the show offers for her character. Kimiko is still a native of Japan, but unlike her origin story in the comics, Kimiko has a brother named Kenji, who she is captured with by the Shining Light Liberation Army to become soldiers in a war they were waging in the Philippines. Kimiko witnesses the Shining Light Liberation Army brutally murder her parents, and the ensuing trauma leaves her unable to speak. Eventually, Kimiko manages to escape, vowing to reunite with her brother someday. Once in the US, Kimiko is brought to the Triads in New York. They are the ones to inject her with Compound V as part of a bigger plot by Vought International to weaponize people into becoming suit terrorists. Just like in the comics, Compound V gives her superhuman abilities. Kimiko was freed by Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Huey while they were looking for more information regarding Compound V and what Vought was doing with it. Upon being freed, this is the first time in the TV series Kimiko can be seen in action. She massacres her tormentors before she attempts to attack Frenchie and company. Once they lock themselves in a cage to prevent her from killing them, Kimiko leaves and heads directly to Penn Station, hoping to return home. She never once stopped worrying about getting back to her brother. It's clear Kimiko has her own motivations, something that we don't see much of in the comics. She kills Roberta, the woman who gave her over to the Triads, and would have probably continued on her solo mission if it weren't for Frenchie finding her in the electronics store she was hiding in. And just like in the comics, Frenchie is the one to make a connection with Kimiko. He makes such a big impression on her that she actually goes back to save him from Black Noir after she escapes from the boys' hideout. In season 2, Kimiko finally reunites with her brother, who is still under the control of the Shining Light Liberation Army, working as a super terrorist with telekinetic powers. Kimiko helps the boys capture him, but that is only after he refuses to go with them willingly. Things don't go easy when they try to return him to Mallory, leading to Kimiko fighting with her brother against Stormfront. Although they had been apart for years, the sibling love was still strong, which is evident when Kimiko's brother intervenes before she is killed by Stormfront. He ends up dying instead, putting Stormfront at the top of Kimiko's hit list. She spends the rest of the season seeking revenge, culminating in her fighting Stormfront in the finale with Queen Maeve and Starlight. As the series continues, the relationship between Kimiko and Frenchie also continues to grow. She teaches him sign language and the two bond over their understanding of one another. Frenchie loves the Golden Girls and Kimiko is a fan of musicals. There is more to them than what they do for the boys team, and in season 3, Kimiko grapples with her powers and whether she wants them, which comes into play after she loses her powers via her run-in with Soldier Boy. The situation creates a great character moment for Kimiko, who eventually comes back to wanting her powers to protect Frenchie. She even asks Starlight to get her Compound V. Just when it seems like Kimiko and Frenchie's relationship is turning into something more romantic, it's reaffirmed that they have a platonic relationship. Kimiko wants to protect her family and Frenchie is her family. And this concludes this deep dive character session of Superhero Club. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm your host Stephanie Williams. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more episodes of Superhero Club. Remember, you can check out all 3 seasons of The Boys on Prime Video.